This is Motivation. I'm Laurie Joy Kingwell.
And I'm Krissy Van. We're two dreamers on two wheels inspired by our community.
And celebrating the voices we're just lucky enough to discover along the ride. So if not already, like, subscribe, follow along, do what you gotta do to not miss an episode.
Twisting the throttle is exhilarating, but the excitement and thrill builds as you move up the gears. The same feeling happens when you lean into your creative side and natural abilities. In life, we get a choice: remain at our status quo or challenge ourselves to gear up on our skill sets. Today, we're so excited to have a very special guest on the show, Rene Botha. Born in South Africa, Rene immigrated to Canada at the age of 14. In her words, she's been drawing, painting, sculpting, writing, and playing music very well, might I add, all her life. Now residing in Vancouver, Rene is an extremely sought-after tattoo artist with a consistently full roster of bookings. She's always striving to dive deeper into her creative side and is an incredible example of someone who consistently challenges themselves to grow, even amongst tremendous success. Today on the podcast, we get to learn how to level up the gears in our own lives, hone our crafts, and lean into the essence of our creative selves. This is the Motivation.
Wow, that's amazing introduction. Thank you very much.
So Rene preceded herself because I used to live in the Caribbean about 5+ years ago, and I visited Vancouver often. I was hunting down tattoo artists, and Rene, I had you saved on my Instagram, and I only had like 3 people saved, and I was obsessed with your work. And now fast forward about 3 years later, I'm living in Vancouver, and Kim, you, me, I think Hales, and maybe Jody, maybe, I don't know. There was a Missy. There was a few of us. Anyways, new gals coming along. Kim says, we're picking up this gal. I don't think any of you guys have met her, Rene. And oh, cool. And then they mentioned you're a tattoo artist. And it was like sitting in the backseat going, well, madam, what's her name? And they say, I'm looking up Instagram. I'm like, is this her? And that's Rene. And it was just like fangirling in the seat. I was like, hello. It was like 6 a.m. Do you remember that? We're going to like,
I sure do.
Yeah, that moto. Yeah. What was it? Like a moto seminar or whatever. But I was just like, this is amazing. And then bonus, I convinced you to be one of my closest friends shortly afterwards. So all of it. So I was a huge fan of your work before I even knew you.
Oh, amazing.
The talent is just absolutely outrageous. It really is.
So we have to know, obviously looking at your bio and really just reading up your whole life, you've obviously been an incredibly artistic individual doing a ton of skill sets too, from sculpting to, I heard there's some story that we're going to hear down the line about you being very impressive on a sold out show at a stage with your musical talents. But that aside, as an artist, how do you go from doing those types of works with your hands to transitioning to literally changing and putting your art on people's skin? Tell me how you made that leap.
Well, I think, wow, that's a lot.
I imagine it was probably not a small decision.
How do I unpack that?
How do I unpack this? Yeah. So, I mean, I think what it comes down to for me is I've just always had this insatiable need to be creative. That creativity finds its way through different mediums. When I was younger, when I was 16 years old, I started a band with my brother, and then I ended up having a long, I wouldn't say career. I was in bands. I was in many bands for maybe 15 years. And then I slowly transitioned into tattooing because I needed to find something a little bit more stable. I have ADD in life. I'm very curious. I can fill up 10 lives with what I want to do. And so I think just being curious and having this creative need is what just propels me forward. The evolution of it was just at some point, tattooing was a bit more stable for me. And I was able to make a living out of it. And so I started to really put my energy into learning tattooing. And usually things that I was attracted to, I felt like I was usually somewhat okay at the things that I chose to do until I started tattooing. And it was just something I wasn't good at, which was, looking back now, such a blessing because it taught me so much. Because you have to put aside your ego, put aside what you think you know, be honest with yourself, and then go back to like child learning, like explain it to me like I'm 5, that kind of thing. Tattooing has given me so much, but it's taught me to really shed my ego and start from a very honest place.
I have to know, in those beginnings, because you were gravitating to things that you were talented at from the get-go, as you say, what was that like for you? You hear the saying all the time, never be afraid to suck at something. And not to say that you sucked, but in your word saying, it didn't come naturally necessarily. So what was that like for you in those early days? Talk me through that.
It's really tough. It shows your character in many ways, but there was something inside me that felt like this was something that I had to do. I still can't explain why I decided that this was my path, but I just knew it. And I put my head down and I didn't worry about how bad I was. I put my head down and I'm like, I'm going to take one step after the next and I'm going to figure this out. And through that persistence and that perseverance, you make these small little steps. And one day you look up and you've come all this way. But I don't think I've really realized that until people around me started saying, hey, do you want to tattoo me? I'm like, oh, you want me to tattoo you? And then you realize that you've had your head down for so long working on yourself that suddenly now people are noticing and recognizing that, which is amazing. And it feels great. But I don't feel like that should ever be your goal.
Which I think for you've, even as your friend, like when I came over to your place and there was sketches everywhere of different body parts and like the lips, remember the lips you were having, because you go to these art classes and you're always honing this skill. And it was a very incredible moment for me, and switch something within me to see how you just like, your books are full. You can't get appointments for months, potentially even a year before you can even get into you. You could just cruise. You're practicing technically every time that you do a tattoo, but you could very much cruise from here on your talent and get away with it, but you don't. And it seems like it's so much a part of you, like you said, of keeping your head down and just getting to it, that it's so much a part of your character now to keep switching gears and just pushing. And that's what I can't wait to see where you go from here even. But it was so incredible for someone like myself, because in certain areas that I've used a little bit too much of the cruise control. And I was like, here's Rene. She's killing the game in what she does. And she's spending every Tuesday at her art classes, and she's spending hours and hours and hours working on lips. It made me inspired to go home and start really. And I don't know if I've ever shared that with you. Have I? How that moment inspired me?
No, you haven't. That's amazing. I love that.
And it was like, it kicked my ass into a different gear where it was like, because you've read it and you're this, but here I am in this moment, seeing this and knowing you and stuff. And it was just like, it doesn't matter what anyone else outside of you quite thinks of what you're doing. Are you constantly leveling up? Are you kicking into the next gear? So do you think that, I assumed, I made an assumption here, but do you think that is coming from your desire to want to continue bettering yourself? Or do you think that maybe comes more from your your practice learned behavior of just like working and chiseling away at the skill and just getting better and better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a few of those things combined. For me, when I'm working on a piece, by the time I'm done that piece, I already know what I'm going to do better next time. And I think it is, as an artist, that is your journey, is every time you finish something, you go, you know what? Next time I'm going to do this and this and this different. When you get to a point where you have completed a piece and you're like, that's it, I'm perfect, nothing else to do, I think your career is over as an artist, because then you have nothing else to say. And so there is this need to want to better yourself, and you have this vision for yourself. And when you think about mastering something, they always talk about 10,000 hours, or it takes 10 years to master something. And when you first start, you have an idea of what you want to do. And then there's what you're actually doing, because you don't have the skills yet. You don't have the experience yet. And so over the course of those 10 years, you're closing that gap. You're closing that gap little bit by little bit. And now that I've been tattooing for about 13 years, I feel like I'm getting to a place where I'm like, I don't know if that gap ever completely closes. It becomes smaller, and you start to feel like you're mastering your tools, and you can create something with a bit more confidence, but you're always going to strive for something more, because you'll see it. You'll see the next thing you should have done. And I mean, at least that's how my mind works. Another thing is also, I also have people who inspire me greatly. And not necessarily because they do exactly what I do. In fact, a lot of them don't. But it's that energy of wanting to move forward and improve, stretch yourself, challenge yourself, move into the unknown. That is what actually helps you grow as a person and connect with your environment, connect with people individually or as a collective. That's what's truly inspiring. And as an artist, what you're trying to do, art is there to move you. Art is there to make you feel something. Not all art's there to make you feel good. Some of it will piss you off, but as long as you look at something and you're like, I feel something, it's done its job. And so it's to connect to that, and seeing other people do that is what keeps me going.
Can you give us an example of when you got ignited with the spark from inspiration from someone else?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I love to travel, and I do a lot of workshops and seminars, and a lot of tattoo seminars. I went down to LA a few times to work with people in my field. And so tattooing is quite diverse, and people specialize in different styles. My style specifically is black and gray realism. And even though there are some artists in Vancouver who do that, there's not a lot. So I used to end up at shops where I'm the only realism artist. So flying down to LA and then being in a room with 20 people whose life is black and gray. And I know, like, this you probably feel that with our biking community when we are at a ride and we all go to a meetup. You show up and you ride into a parking lot with 10, 15, 20 other bikes. That sparks something in you, and you become like it ignites your passion. And if you can tap into that as often as you need to, because I think that you get a lot of value tapping into that. And then you use that fire that you have out in the world, in what you do, whether it's your job or your family or whatever you want to go do, a hobby or whatever. Use that energy, that momentum. So for instance, I recently took a workshop from a very talented artist out of France, and it was all online. And I learned so many things that when I showed up to my consultations, meeting new people for new projects, I was so inspired by those ideas, and I couldn't wait to inject those ideas, that the inspiration that I got from that workshop into the new project. So I show up with enthusiasm. I'm excited. That energy carries through me to my client. Now my client's stoked. It just makes such a beautiful relationship. And all the people, I just opened my books in January and I took on a whole bunch of new projects. So I am meeting a whole new wave of people. And I can't tell you how amazing it's been meeting and connecting with people this time around. I mean, I have wonderful clients, and part of tattooing that is so special is that you're imprinting a memory into someone. Whatever is happening that day is what they're going to remember. If I was in a shitty mood, whatever I tattooed on them that day, they're going to remember that. If I was positive, if I was enthusiastic, if I was chill, whatever's happening becomes a part of them, and that's on them forever. And that's a huge responsibility. But it's so special when you have this good interaction. You figure out what moves you, what inspires you, and tap into that as often as you need to.
How incredible that you get to go to these beautiful places, be around so many other beautiful creatives, because not a lot of people get to say that about what they do for a living, what they get paid to do to pay their bills. And it's not lost on me that I'm incredibly lucky. Making money as an artist, it's special. And I'm very grateful for that.
You shared with us how you have this constant yearning to be on this creative journey. And because of the incredible work you've done to hone your skills, you've seen a lot of success in that. But I'm just curious, along that journey, what are some of the biggest struggles you've had to overcome? And do you still deal with any?
Yes, I think that struggling is part of the process, because in order to grow and get better, you have to focus on your weaknesses or just the things that you haven't practiced as much. So when you are trying to get to that next level, that requires growth, and growth hurts usually. So yeah, I mean, there are days where you go home and you're just like, what's the point? And I think that negative, talking to yourself in a negative way, that can be an enemy. You definitely want to, look, sometimes you just doubt yourself when you're having a bad day. And I think that's just how it goes. And then sometimes I just sit in it. I'm like, okay, this isn't going how I thought it would, and I'm supposed to learn something from this. So look at it, learn from it, get back up, and move on. But on a bad day, it's tough. So yeah, I would say there are always obstacles in your way. And one of the biggest ones, I think, would be to focus on the people around you, like your competition. What I should be doing, where I should be at, how many Instagram followers or likes I should have. Those things are extremely distracting. And it's really tough in today's world to block that out sometimes. And I feel like, I have a very limited relationship with Instagram or social media in general. The only social media platform I use is Instagram, because literally the tattoo industry runs off Instagram. But it can be very damaging to your work that you're doing, your creative path, your journey that you're on, when you are comparing yourself to other people. And like, Instagram doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, just because someone got 500 likes on a tattoo doesn't mean that it is better, or doesn't mean that yours isn't as good because you got 50 likes. It just doesn't mean what we think it means. So the key is to try and block that shit out. But it's hard, because that's the world we live in.
As you said that, and I know that people listening can't see us, but Laurie and I were like, hell yeah, nods, hell yeah, nods. Because I think we have all fallen into that path for sure. There's such a great quote: comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I love that you add in your statement there is, it's not only taking that joy away from your process and what you're working to create, but it's also just creating a feeling that's so difficult to overcome. Like when you said distraction, that's the feeling that can take us away from our growth journey. And so I love that you add to that. It's not just comparison taking away the joy, but it's a distraction. And so I know that Laurie is going to jump in here, but I just have to ask, how do you best block that out?
I feel like one of the things that I've consistently worked at was just focus on yourself. What other people are doing, that's their business. It has nothing to do with me. This is what's on my plate. The things that I have ownership over are my thoughts, my actions, my ideas. That's what I can use to make my life better, to make the world a better place. That's what I concern myself with. And so to stretch outside of that bubble, the things that you can influence, you're just causing yourself a whole bunch of pain and worry. So I try to just keep my head down and do the work. You do the work. And I think through patience and persistence, you start seeing that growth happen. And once you see that growth happen and you feel it, it becomes addictive. You want to get to that next level. You realize that it's so worth it. And in fact, it's the only thing that's really worth it, is just focusing on yourself so that you can make those strides forward.
Especially if you're doing all the things to just really expand on that creativity and expand on what's inspiring you. If you're counteracting it with comparison, there's nothing that kills a creative energy like a comparison, because you can't possibly want to create what they create, because what they want to create is within them. And I can't remember I think it was maybe the Michelangelo sculpture or something like that, where it was always in the stone. It was just mine to uncover kind of thing, where it's like, you're just the medium behind the translation. And so if you're looking over here.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Because as your goal, like, there's one of the things that truly inspire me and that I almost chase after is when you are creating something, whether it's a drawing or a song. And I don't know if you've felt this, and it hasn't happened to me very many times in my life, but sometimes it feels like there is something that wants to exist.
Yes.
And all the stars align and it just comes through you. And I've had it happen with drawings. I've had it happen in these very special moments that you realize that was something bigger than yourself. And I remember doing this drawing, and when I was done, I dropped it and I stepped away from my table because I'm like, this is done. And that is what I love about art, is there's just so many facets to it. And the more that you hone your craft and the more that you focus in on your own abilities, the closer you get to channeling that energy and creating something that you feel is bigger than yourself.
Yes.
Gave me goosebumps. It gave me goosebumps.
Give me some goose nipples over here. Okay. One quick thing that, almost like a little mini pep talk, if you will.
Yeah.
Someone's listening, they're starting something, or they have been in it for a while, and they know there's something to it, but they're discouraged and they feel that weight of like, oh my God, I've got so many rough edges to smooth on out. What's something that you could quickly tell them to get clarity, or just to see it a little differently?
Well, the first thing I would say is, whatever you're doing, whether it's writing or making music or whatever your thing is, talk to people who are doing that thing. Learn their process. What do they do when they get up in the morning? What happens in their day for them to achieve what they're doing? And one of the things I absolutely love is talking to different artists about their process, because everybody has a different one. And when you talk to enough people, sometimes you see what they're doing, you relate to that in a very specific way, and you take that little piece and you add it to your day. And the more people you talk to, the more you are building your own process, your own individual way of trying to get from I want to do this thing to doing that thing. And talk to people, talk to as many people as you can. And some people will do something a specific way, and you're like, that's absolutely not for me. Now you know that. And another thing I would do is do your thing every day. If you're a writer, write every day. You have to get through a certain amount of work, become familiar with it, become familiar with all the nooks and crannies of what that space looks like, and own it and sit in it. And the more you become familiar with your tools and your craft, then you start seeing the nuances. And that's when you get to the next level. Once you have the foundation, then you look at things through a different lens that's very nuanced, and that's very exciting. So yeah, I would say just keep your head down and work and talk to people who are doing what you're doing.
I think you accidentally just beautifully did your motivation. Maintenance. As you were talking, I was like, damn, girl, that's your motivation maintenance.
Oh, yes, it is. And it was a double header, which is very exciting. Right. Two things. Nice. We have zero excuses now. We have 2 assignments to implement in our lives.
Yeah. Okay, we got one more rapid fire.
Okay.
So we don't usually do this, but we just had so many questions.
So many
Krissy and I were visiting. I was like, we could do a rapid fire. Okay. Well, Krissy, you want to go first? You want to hit her?
Yeah. What was the first tattoo that you did on a person, and how did it turn out?
It was a lily behind an ear. And that is the first tattoo that someone paid me to do. The first tattoo I ever did on a person is on me.
Oh,
yes.
And
that's pretty epic.
And it's terrible.
What is it?
It's a hummingbird. Yeah, on my leg. And
You're going to
all
show
the
me
lines
next time we
are going
hang out.
I will show you. It's getting covered up right now, so you have limited time to see it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, what is the weirdest thing someone's asked you to tattoo that you were like, yeah, nope, not going to do that?
Well, I mean, someone asked me to do a really weird tattoo, and I actually did do it.
What was it? Can you say it?
Yeah, it was her boyfriend's name on her outer labia.
Oh, bless.
That's a turn I was not expecting.
She was just so cool about it. I'm like, well, okay, yeah.
You know what?
Does that hurt more? I have more questions on this. Like, what's the pain level on something like that?
I mean, she seemed fine.
Depends on your vag. Depends on the
If you are out there, good for you. Wow.
Yeah. I hope her and Rob are still together.
Yeah. Or
Here's
else
hoping.
James is not happy about it.
What's your favorite tattoo that you've ever done? Favorite piece?
Oh, that's a tough one. Usually the last tattoo I've ever done. The one I did today.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like I'm so connected to my work that, yeah, it's usually the last piece I've worked on. So,
okay.
Bigger than that, I mean, I'm working on amazing pieces lately. So I'm lucky enough to do what I want to do. I take on things that I want to do. So I love it all, to be honest.
What an epic level to reach. Love that.
Okay. This one is a pretty important one. Do you remember seeing my tattoo, sir?
I saw yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you inspired?
I got to know what you thought, and then we'll share the backstory.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw it?
Well, to be honest, I remember it's a cover-up of a cover-up.
Yeah.
Yes. To be honest, that's kind of all I remember. Because
do you remember how I showed it or what we were doing right before? Do you remember what we were doing?
How much booze have I had?
Well,
we were at Anna's house.
Yeah. And we were looking up an Instagram account that was all about people's terrible tattoos. And we're dying laughing and sharing them. And then about I don't even know, quite a length of time in, I was like, oh, you guys, I have a jacked up tattoo. And you guys were like, no, you don't. What are you on about? No, for real. I can't believe it took this long to show you. And you guys thought I was kidding, but it turns out I wasn't. And this incredible tattoo artist, my friend, got to see the jankiest tattoo. So essentially what it was a really terrible angel I got when I was like 20. And then I started to get a cover up 10 years later, and then heard that even if you have a cover up, the old ink will come through. So problem solver Laurie is like, you know what, let's just get it all lasered and start from scratch. So I have a tattoo on a tattoo that are both getting lasered. And then I found out that it's easier and cheaper if you wait till it's an old tattoo. So I've had this jacked up tattoo on my back for 5 years, and I'm weirdly now a little attached. I don't know. I feel,
it's a part of you.
Yeah. Like I'm like, we're all a little imperfect and janky. And I feel like
it's got a quality story. That's the best.
Honestly, part. I have tattoos that are imperfect, and that's what I love about it. One of the things I love about tattoos is that they're not perfect. And that they are, and that they mark this time in your life, and you carry them with you, and they tell a story. And there's so much to just having that I think that's maybe why you're feeling so connected to your tattoo.
Yeah.
My blue shooting star that I got when I was 16 after a night of drinking with a fake ID off a wall.
Yeah.
It just gets better with age. They don't make them like that anymore.
No.
Amazing.
Well, that's settled. I'm keeping mine.
Great.
Rene, I don't know if you saw it. Did you have a quote? One of your favorite quotes around? It could be
I
a topic or
do.
just a favorite quote.
I have a favorite quote.
Yeah.
Okay. My quote is by an American poet named Maya Angelou, who said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have."
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, Rene, thank you so much, our dear, dear friend, for doing this with
I
us
love you
tonight.
guys.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure.
You, and you're sharing the inspiration in a big, big way. And we cannot wait to see where you go, because it's been pretty awesome hearing about the journey so far.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you guys. I have to say one thing, because I listened to all the episodes so far and I love them.
Cool.
And last night, my girlfriend had a bottle of white wine and she had the hiccups. And I was like, "Where's that $5 you owe me?" Holy shit, they work so well.
That's so good.
I couldn't believe that I got to try it right away.
Right away.
To that. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. It literally works.
Amazing. Testimonial.
Instantly.
Well, I'm glad I'm recording this right now, because we're going to add this into the episode and just say, if you thought that was a junk theory, here we are living.
Here we are.
Want some inspiration in your life.
Saved a life. Oh.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, if you didn't know, that's your motivation. You've just listened to the Motivation Podcast with your host, Krissy Van, and me, Laurie Joy Kingwell.
Thanks for joining us along the ride. We've got new episodes dropping every Monday, and we're all about community. So follow us on Instagram at Motivation Podcast and visit our website at themotivation.com.
And in the meantime, tanks full and full throttle.